Um, Today, on the United Nations International Day of Enforced Disappearances, we have come together to shed light on one of the most painful and silenced human rights violation of our time. Enforced disappearance is not only the taking away of an individual, it is the deliberate erasure of a voice, a story, and a life from our collective memory. For the families left behind, the torment is unending. Mothers, fathers, children, and spouses are left in a state of permanent uncertainty, caught between hope and despair, never knowing whether their loved one is alive, suffering, or lost forever. This uncertainty is itself is a form of a torture. The absence becomes a wound that never heals, passing from one generation to the next. At societal level, enforced disappearance is not simply an attack on individuals. It is a calculated tool of repression. It aims to instill fear, silence, dissent, and actually suppress the very right to freedom of speech and expression. So, by targeting activists, journalists, political leaders, and ordinary citizens who dare to speak up, this tactic strikes at the foundation of justice, democracy, and human dignity. Many members of Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, UNPO, know this reality all well too. From communities silenced by authoritarian regimes to the nations whose very identity is threatened, enforced disappearance has been wielded as a weapon to erase our cultures, suppress our right of self-determination, and prevent the exercise of fundamental rights. Our stories, our members' stories, and their stories remind us that the enforced disappearance is not a crime of the past. It is a tactic which is still alive and used to weaken the movements for freedom, justice, and equality. On this day, we reaffirm that the enforced disappearance is never acceptable. We honor the courage of the families and people who continue to demand truth and justice. And we all call upon the international community today to intensify its efforts to ensure accountability and impunity, guarantee that no voice is silenced through disappearances. Let us remember that when one person is disappeared, it is not just a family that suffers. It is humanity itself that is diminished. And our duty is to ensure that these voices are not lost, but amplified until justice is serviced and every community can live with the dignity and freedom. And therefore, today's platform open to all those activists who are struggling to find their loved ones. And over to you, Navashna, and my fellow members.
Thank you very much, Rubina, for that wonderful opening. It's really set the stage wonderfully as we speak in this webinar about enforced disappearances today. Just before we get into the speakers, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for being here. A couple of quick remarks. Please note that the webinar will be recorded and it may be shared on our website. Each speaker will share their insights and perspective from the individual communities, shedding light on the situation and key challenges. At the end, we will not have a Q&A session live, but we do encourage you to please share your thoughts and comments in the chats. If there is time at the end, some of our speakers may be able to reflect on that in their final remarks. With that, let's begin. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who is Ms. Tamara Dodnatsky. She will share her insights on the Crimean Tatars. Tamara is an activist from Crimea SOS, where she is a project manager. She is engaged in overseeing the activities under the responsibility of Crimea SOS, including the administration of funds to support social media, cultural, educational, and social initiatives, emergency support to vulnerable groups in Crimea, such as the Crimean Tatars, and considering human rights violations, victims, and their families. Thank you. Over to you, Tamara.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today for this webinar. It's really important to raise the voice, and one of those questions you sent me previously was about how it affects people, and that's really critical issue now for Crimean Tatars, especially because our history and our mentions about us was vanished during the Soviet Union time, and after the occupation in 2014, Crimean Tatars became one of the most targeted group in Crimea again, and for people whose percentage is 13 within the whole population of the peninsula, it's really, really important to make those voices vocal, not just in Ukraine, not just in Crimea, but also on the international level, because our people is under the threat of being vanished at all. Talking about enforced disappearances, our organization worked with these cases since 2014. It was the first wave of enforced disappearances in Crimea. For the period from February 2014 till the full-scale invasion in 2022, we have recorded 66 cases of enforced disappearances, and 31 of them were released within a few days. 6 were found dead. 7 were charged with crimes. 1 was extradited abroad. And the fate of 21 persons is still unknown, and most of them are Crimean Tatars. As I said, that there were several waves, and all of these waves, most of those people who were abducted during this time, that was Crimean Tatars. And enforced disappearances for Russian Federation, and I think as for all totalitarian regimes, it's the tool to smash the resilience, to fight against unloyal population, to make this picture of total control. And for example, in the beginning, we identified several groups. They were the most targeted by the occupation authorities. It was representatives of regional administrations. That was activists, journalists. In general, we can say that those people were those who was strongly against the occupation, against the violations and crimes that occupation authorities did at that time. For example, unfortunately, I don't know how to say it because it's really painful. I know some of this. I know some families of those of victims of enforced disappearances, and talking how it affects people. When we talk about enforced disappearances, we talk not just about the victims, we also talk about their families. For example, in 2014, when the first violation started from the side of Russian Federation, there was a group of activists who monitored the situation and made some kind of reports for national institutions and for international institutions. Abdurrashid Japarov and Emir Hüseyin Kuku, both of them became victims of the regime. Abdurrashid Japarov, his son and his nephew were kidnapped, and we still don't know about their whereabouts. And it's already 10 years. The second one is Emir Hüseyin Kuku. Now he is imprisoned he was accused in a terroristic article, and he is one of the political prisoners whom we are fighting for. I mean, our organization and all of Ukrainian organizations. And then more and more, for example, from these 21 people who were abducted from 2014 to 2022, most of them were active on the regional level. They provide people. They provided units, army units, with food, who were at the time blocked by the so-called green people, zeleni человечки. That's how they were called. So now it's already 11 years of occupation of Crimea, and we still don't know about the fates of those people. Later in 2016, one of the representatives of Majlis, which is our representative body, he was also kidnapped by and we definitely know that he was abducted by the occupation authorities, because there were video from the cameras around the place he was kidnapped, and there are a lot of testimonies that definitely those people were they are linked to the special services. So and how it affected his family. His father, he has heavily mental disorders, because during all this time he's trying to reach out national institutions, international institutions, to somehow influence the situation, to make to get at least to get some information about his son, about his fate, if he's alive or not. And his mother, now she is paralyzed because her health is really affected by the stress she experienced because of her son was kidnapped. Yeah, and after the invasion, Russian Federation, they spreaded these practices on the newly occupied territories. We had our office in Kherson region, and we monitored the situation there, and the patterns were the same. But it was massively, and it was more brutal, and in short period of time they kidnapped journalists who appeared then in Crimea, imprisoned. They kidnapped representatives of the Kherson administration, and they also appeared in Crimea. Some of them lately were transferred to the territory of Russian Federation. But still, they used the same, they targeted the same groups of people, they used the same methodology of kidnapping, and also there is an interesting thing that sometimes in political persecution cases, we have the same patterns, we have the same features of enforced disappearances, because they kidnap people. They keep them in state of incommunicado for several days. So during these days, people don't get any assistance. They don't have access to defense, to the lawyers. They don't have any connections or to their relatives. No one knows what had they experienced during this time. Some of them were tortured. And after several days or even months, they accused them in different kind of crimes, as in terrorism or extremism or collaboration to Ukrainian security services, which is okay because they are citizens of Ukraine. And that's how they work, not just in Crimea since the occupation, that's also they implemented after the full-scale invasion. And also one of the problems with Crimean Tatars, and not just Crimean Tatars who were imprisoned, they in Crimea since 2014, it is the forced passportization, because they accuse them according to Russian legislation, and they imprison them according to this legislation. But in fact, they are still citizens of Ukraine. And this procedure, let's say, call it so, it is the war crime. And unfortunately, now we don't have efficient mechanisms to release those people, to make any applications for the victims of enforced disappearances, because those mechanisms which were existed before the war in Ukraine, they are not relevant to the relevant situation, because this war, it's a bit hybrid war. They use all methods. They improve their. They even affect people on the mental level. The level of propaganda, not just in Crimea but in general in the world, is very powerful. And unfortunately, Ukraine and many other countries who are struggling by the regimes, we are failing the war in media. We are failing the war on the informational level. So yeah, coming back to enforced disappearances, the last
Tamara, I'm so sorry to cut in here. I just want to make sure we keep track of the time so we can get through everybody.
The last point, but not the least, that it really impacts the generations, because Crimean Tatars experienced deportation in 1944. And for more than 50 years, we lived in the places of exile. We were not welcomed in Crimea. We were not welcomed in any other places we used to live. But after 2014, children grew up in the atmosphere of fear, and for them it's a bit dangerous to identify themselves as Crimean Tatars, because automatically they are labeled with terrorism. They are automatically labeled with collaborators to Ukrainian regime or to some other regime, and they knew definitely that they could be persecuted, or they could be treated in a bad way. So for the kids, and this trauma lasts for not just one generation, it lasts for more than 3-5 generations. And I know that from my own experience, because I'm one of the representatives. I grew up and was born in the places of exile. So for us, it's important not just to raise the voice, but also to talk to our kids. That's our roots, that our resilience is really important to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you. That was really good. Thanks. Now on to our next speaker, who is from Baluchistan. We will welcome Dr. Sabia. Dr. Sabia is a member of the Central Working Group Committee for the Baluch Yeti Community Committee. She works against enforced disappearances and human rights abuses, which is faced by the Baluch people at the hands of the state of Pakistan. Dr. Sabia, thank you.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me. Am I audible for everyone?
Dr. Sabia, can I ask if you can speak a bit louder or closer to the speaker? I think we're struggling a bit to hear you. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, let's how's it now? Okay, is this clear?
A little bit louder if possible.
Please further line. How's it now? I don't know.
Sabia, you can start and come near to the computer. Near to the computer.
I think you've muted the microphone.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Can you hear us, Sabia? Sabia, can you hear us?
I think it is.
We can't hear you at all. We can't hear you. Shall we?
Yeah, I can hear you. How's it now?
We can't hear you at all. I suggest, Amishna, we move to another speaker and then come back to Sabiaji. Okay?
Okay.
Sabia, we will come back to you. You sort out the computer. We go to another speaker.
Okay. Then for our next speaker, Mr. Taimur Aliassi, we have, who will provide insights on Kurdistan. Taimur is the co-founder, executive director, and UN representative of the Kurdistan Human Rights Geneva Organization and president of the Impact Iran Coalition. Taimur is a Swiss citizen with a Kurdish background from Iran, the country which he left after the 1979 revolution. Taimur strives to promote democracy, respect for human rights, and social development in Kurdistan of Iran and beyond. Thank you, Taimur.
Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here, and thank you for UNPO and you all to give me this space to talk about the situation in Kurdistan and Iran. This is really important for us. Thank you so much. So before anything, I would like to remind the context of Iran, which is a huge country with about 90 million population and mainly composed of Kurds, Baluchi, Persian, Ahwazi Arab, Turkmen, and Azerbaijanis. But according to Article 1, 2, 4, 12, and 15 of Iran's constitution, the official language is Persian, and the official religion of the state is Shiatul Islam. So in practice, the power is in hand of one group, who is the Persian Shia group, who are only 30% of the population, according to the former Minister of Education of the country. So in respect of the situation of the term of this webinar, which is enforced disappearances, I would like to talk about one aspect of these disappearances, which is the question of returning or disappearing remains the bodies of prisoners of political war executed in Iran, and who the state refuses to return remains of those people who were executed to the families for proper burial. But before that, I would like also to situate the global political situation of the ethnic minorities in the country. As you know, the Islamic Republic of Iran was established in 1979. And there was a referendum after the coming to power of Ayatollah Khomeini at the time. He organized a referendum with two questions put to the populations all Iranians. The question was, do you want establishment of Islamic Republic in Iran or a monarchy regime? Then Iranian people, including the Kurdish people, they have overthrown the despotic monarchy regime. And then the Kurdish people, in a vast majority, they rejected the establishment of Islamic Republic. And then at time, Ayatollah Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran, who confiscated the power in the country, he was unhappy with the position of the Kurdish people who were opposing establishment of Islamic State in Iran and who were also calling for autonomy in Kurdistan and other regions of the country. So Ayatollah Khomeini declared a holy war against Kurdish people, framing the Kurds as anti-revolutionary, anti-Islam, and foreign agents, conspiracies. And then they attacked the Kurdish, Iranian Kurdistan for provinces militarily by bombing, killing thousands, hundreds of people, and hundreds of thousands of people had to leave Kurdistan to seek refuge in the mountains and in neighboring Iraqi Kurdistan. At that time on, the Islamic Republic adopted a security approach towards Kurdistan, but also towards ethnic issues as mainly in the country. So the Kurds were perceived and framed as a threat to the regime. So they started attacking. They started mass summary executions. They started to kidnap and arrest people arbitrarily by hundreds. And as a result, we had hundreds and thousands of people who were disappeared in the beginning of revolutions. And this is the first time I mentioned this in a public event. I had a cousin with two kids. Her husband was arrested and disappeared, and the wife is still waiting for his return 46 years later. So there are two cases I would like to mention. There are the case of Kurdish political prisoners who are executed in the country, but the regime refuses to return the body, the remains of this of the political prisoners who are executed by the regime, and they do not disclose the whereabouts of Beria or where the regime has keeping or hiding or burying the prisoners who were executed by the regime. And the last case we had, it is Hussein, a Kurdish political prisoner who was executed on 25th April this year. And despite the UN Special Rapporteur for Iran calls to the regime to return the remains of this political prisoner who was executed, the regime refuses. And it is a cruel treatment, and it's really a kind of mental pressure on the family that for decades, for months, for years, they cannot bury their sons who were executed, and they do not know where they are kept. And the other case is the cases of few thousands Iranians who were executed in 1988 by the regime in mass executions, very well known. It's part of also the Special Rapporteur Asma Jahangir work on that. So this thousand, I mean, there are estimated between 5,000 and 10,000 people where they were buried. It's a big question. And in the past year, there were some reports that they were buried somewhere in Tehran called Basht Zahra. And then in the past months, I mean, the family of these victims who are disappeared and buried, we don't know any where exactly. They started to go to this place where they are. It's kind of mass grave in Tehran. But then in the past months, the regime has decided to build a parking or buildings in those places, which has created a kind of tension and also mediatic echo and people's anger in the country. So, I mean, the enforced disappearances is not happening only in Iran. I mean, it's something happening for the past 80 years in Turkey. In Syria, we talk about hundreds of thousands of people who were disappeared enforcibly. And it is the case in Latin America, in Chile, in many countries. But in Iran, it's really, really very, very cruel. I mean, cruel in the mean, the people we know they are arrested, we know they executed, they are political prisoners, and the international community, the UN, various mechanisms ask for it, and they don't give any information neither to the family nor to the UN. So it is cruel, very cruel. And frankly, what we have been doing, it is reporting the past 40 years to the various UN mechanisms. And there have been reports, reactions of the UN systems. But frankly, this is not enough. And international community, I mean, what often they do is communication by principle. But at the end, what makes a difference is the populations inside the country, the families. If we can sensitize, launch campaigns, and raise awareness among the Iranian populations, supporting the family of the victims, that can make a difference. This is why I recommend more of awareness among the populations of the country. I mean, it's good to raise the issue in the international arena, but it is often a declaration of principle, and the UN concluding observation or recommendation doesn't have a kind of authoritative or obligatory dimension. So it's very hard to. It is helping us in our advocacy. It is helping us to in media to raise the issue, to raise awareness in the country, but this it is a long way to go. It is really needs to the fight needs to be continue, and we should keep to be we should keep the fight on. Yeah, I thank you so much, Lee. I'm here to answer any question. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Taimur. We agree that perseverance is really, really important when we talk about topics like this. Our next speaker will be Mr. Farhan Kaghzi on behalf of the Sindh. Farhan is the General Secretary of the World Sindhi Congress, and he has been associated with the organization for the past 25 years. He is very passionate about raising awareness and highlighting the suffering of the Sindhi nation in Pakistan. Farhan, thank you.
Thank you. And first of all, do you guys hear me? Thank you. So first of all, thank you, UNPO, for doing this thing on such an important topic. Before even I talk, honestly, I just going to, as Rubina, President, started with this thing. The most cruel part of this thing, as a nation who's suffering, we gone through a lot of painful things, but the most important or critical part of this aspect is uncertainty. I have met people, I have heard from the families of people who are, their sons are being kidnapped, or brothers are being kidnapped. They want certainty, whether that person is being killed. They want to know, they want their dead, see their dead bodies, or if they're being buried, they just want to see their final destination. So that's the most important. And enemies and people who are doing it, they know about it. That's why they are using as a tool to suppress it. So if you step back and ask ourselves, what is enforced disappearance is? Imagine one day your brother, your father, or your friend was walking home from school or work and just vanished. They were not arrested by police with a warrant. There is no record of them in any jail. They are just gone. Men in plain clothes often unmarked vehicle just take them away. This is the reality of enforced disappearance in Sindh, Pakistan. It is kidnapping by people in power who then deny uh, ever taking the person. It leaves family in nightmare of uncertainty. This is not just a story about one or two people. It is a widespread issue in Sindh where political activists, students, and writers, human rights activists are being taken away from their homes and families, and silence that follows is deafening. So how does this affect people? And some of participants already alluded about these things. Unfortunately, the pain is same in Sindh also, like in Iran and other part of the world. We just heard about it. So let's start with who's taking. They are ripped from their life, often tortured and live in constant fear, completely cut off from the world, the protection of law. But the impact doesn't stop there. Think about their families. A mother loses a son, a wife loses a husband, children are left without a father. They have no idea if their loved one is alive or dead, sick or healthy. They cannot mourn and they cannot move on. Their lives are stuck in painful limbo. This uncertainty creates deep psychological scars. Families often face financial ruin as well, especially if the person who has disappeared was primary breadwinner. Children might have a drop out of school, the family social life even affected because friends and neighbors they start distancing themselves out of fear. This pain doesn't just last for few months or year; it gets passed down through generation. And some people who are lucky they let go, they also these people are still follow them, they call them, they threat them that we are watching you, don't get back to the political activities. And not only them, but they are also uh, calling their families and threatening them they stop this thing. So obviously our story is not just distinctive. All other people, other nation who are here are we have a similar stories. What we want from world or UNPO or other organization, we want them to use every tool to stop this thing. And we have tool. That's the sad part is all this developed countries, UN, United Nations, UNPO, and UNPO is comparatively smaller organization, but United Nations and other countries, they have tool. They can use these tools to stop these things. For example, in Europe, you have a GSP plus. Pakistan is one of the biggest importer. They can use these tools and ask them not to do. And I really appreciate. I think a couple of years back, United Nations rapporteur for enforced disappearance went there. He met them, and these things honestly bring some fruit. And some we have seen when they put pressure on Pakistan authorities, they let people go. So they are careful about these things. So this is exactly we want from United Nations, from Europe, from United UK and United States to use every tool to stop Pakistan not to do these things. Because when people ask, we have other day discussion with one of the writer who she is I think doing some research that yes, when we talk to people outside of Pakistan, they say, yeah, you have courts. Why don't you go back and talk, prosecute them or file lawsuit? Honestly, these all laws are just not for Sindhis or Baloch or other people who are kidnapped. These are for maybe for people from Punjab. They have military courts. They have now, they just passed a law that secret agencies can keep people for 90 days without producing in any court of law. Honestly, they won't even do these things to Sindhis or Baloch or other people because these laws are not for us. Military courts, even they won't even prosecute them in military courts also. So just to end of this webinar, I would like that we should pass some resolution that not only all these countries who are using this thing to stop them and urge all the international community to come together and stop this cruel practice. That's all I say. Jason, thank you.
Thank you, Farhan. For our next speaker, we'll hear from Mr. Kurban Guyur, who's speaking on behalf of the Uyghur people in East Turkestan. Kurban is the treasurer and director of the World Uyghur Congress. He is leading the organization's advocacy efforts in German-speaking countries, engaging with parliament and its members, governmental bodies, as well as civil society actors. Thank you, Kurban.
Thank you very much, UMPO, for organizing this wonderful event. And I would like to use this opportunity to also appreciate Rubina's remarks and also the remarks of my previous speakers. And they all have raised this very vital issue. And what moves me very much with the speaks of my previous speeches, that we are obviously facing a global threat of enforced disappearance as a tool of the autocratic, brutal regimes to keep people silent. And the example of the Uyghur people is also showing the same story, as Rubina wonderfully summarized it, the vital aspects of the enforced disappearance, and as also Farhan has underscored that the enforced disappearance is a very painful thing in comparison to many state crimes. And as Farhan said, I'm very agree with that. That when people don't know about the whereabouts of their family members, it is much more painful than death itself. And we have seen this also in the experience of the Uyghur people, who are the Muslim community living in East Turkestan on the northwest of China, which has been occupied 76 years ago by the Chinese Communist Party. And the Chinese Communist Party, after take over the power in the Turkestan 76 years ago, they have always using they have been always using the enforced disappearance as a systematic state policy to keeping the Uyghur people silence and crush their dissent and their opposition to the brutal rule by the Chinese Communist Party. And over the previous years, the Chinese government has using the so-called harsh campaign, the harsh hard strike campaigns in Uzbekistan in every year to starting mass arrests, where many people has been arbitrarily arrested, and that the people don't know about their loved ones. And this policy has been accelerated ever since 2017, that the Chinese government has implemented the massive scale internment camp policy, where according to the UN records, 1.8 to 3 million Uyghur people has been arrested and put into this terrible concentration camps, where they every day brainwashed, tortured, and to change their beliefs and their identity to ones that the Chinese government, Chinese Communist government prefers to. In this terrible system, we have observed that thousands of Uyghurs have been disappeared, and we have seen that over the past year, that also in over ranks, we have over family members disappeared, starting from over former president, over current president, over the president of chairwoman of our executive committee, but also in myself, which has been happened in 2017, that almost for 2 years my mother has disappeared. And I am speaking this as a person who experiencing this by myself, and I would like to say that this is a very terrible experience that every Uyghurs has to be made in Uzbekistan. And this of course, as my previous speakers has mentioned, that the many forms of this enforced disappearance has been happened in those affected places, and the same policy in the Chinese government's implementation in Turkestan perhaps have some uniqueness that I would like to raise here, which is that the Chinese government has using the enforced disappearance as a very systematic state policy. It's not kind of a ad hoc ad hoc reaction of the autocratic regimes to symbolize some opposition activities there. Rather, the Chinese government has been using this policy very systematically, and they have been also using this, especially targeting the members of the activists like us who are daring to speak against this terrible crimes of the government in the public. We have to pay a very high price that our family members disappeared, and we don't know about their whereabouts. And the Chinese government using this, especially targeting the overseas activities like us in forms of their transnational repression, which is creating a huge fear and terror, so that majority of the Uyghur diaspora members cannot dare to speak about the human rights abuses that they are facing, but also that their family members and friends are facing. And this becomes increasingly an important topic, not only at the United Nations, but also locally in Germany and many European countries, in the framework of the transnational oppression that the Chinese government and the brutal governments, other governments like Russia, Iran, and many others, and Pakistan also, that those countries has been using this method to targeting, to try to silence the activists overseas. And we have to speak. We have to continue to speak on this as Farhan said, that on those over active campaigns, not only locally in my case in Germany and other German-speaking countries, but also in the international level, creating some specific effects. For example, in Europe, the Western governments are increasingly paid attention and focusing these crimes, and we have seen the declaration from the G7 countries that transnational repression has been a vital topic that the Western countries are trying to tackle with. And obviously the enforced disappearance that my community has been facing is one of the widespread tool which enforces not only the people in Uzbekistan, but also the vast migration communities of Uyghurs in many places in Central Asia up until to Western countries, largely being silenced. And this is an obvious reason and obvious results that those terrible policies can create a very tangible effects outside. Even that we are living in a free democratic societies, but we have to face to censor ourselves to our deeds to comply with this brutal government. This is what we would like to tackle jointly, and we have seen that not only at the United Nations, but also More importantly, in the individual countries, especially in the Western countries, we have seen some concrete moves from these governments to reacting this. I would like to appeal as my final word that we have to continue over fight, and this is exactly what those brutal governments are not would like to see, and this is the right way. And if we can continue over struggle, we will one day certainly win over the situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. Thanks. I wondered, Dr. Sabia, if we can try see if your signal's any better.
How's this now? Hello, everyone.
Much better. That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much, UNPO, for giving us this chance to speak. Unfortunately, we are from the area where our voices are never heard or never represented on such platforms. So, for having me, I'm really thankful. At this moment, enforced disappearances is the biggest problem we are facing. So let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Sabia Baluch, and I'm from Baluchistan. Baluchistan is currently a province counted in Pakistan, and it makes the 42% of land area of Pakistan. And this time, Baluchistan is facing a worst type of human rights abuses by the hands of Pakistani security forces. These crimes have been started long ago when Baluchistan was annexed with Pakistan in 1948, and after that, insurgency began in just after that, and keeping that insurgency as a point, Pakistan is doing worst human rights crimes in the names of counterinsurgency, but we know these crimes are not being committed only to counter insurgency, but to silence the dissent. Balstan is currently rich in minerals. Balstan is a long coastal area. There's more than 700 miles of warm oceans. So Balstan is connected to the world. So that's why, due to its geographical importance, its expansive minerals, and Pakistan is suppressing the data that people don't speak, and these minerals and these things could be utilized by the army, by the monarchy that Pakistan is ruling. So by name, Pakistan is a democratic country, but unfortunately, we can't see anything like a democratic being performed here. The elections are already planned, and the results are only getting implemented. People have no right to select their person or the person who want to rule them. And the one who speaks against these crimes and the one who writes against these crimes easily get abducted, tortured, and killed. The first enforced disappearance case reported in Baluchistan in 1975. He was Dalip Das, non-Muslim Baluch, who was active against the atrocities of Pakistan. After the Dalip Das, in 1976, son of Sardar Ataullah Mengal, who was the CM of Balochistan, and he was at that moment the CM was himself was in custody by the martial law government, and his son got abducted along with his friend, the men Asad Mengal and his friend Ahmed Shakur. So both of them have been missing since 49 years. So we can count from 50 years this is being practiced, and I can share only figures that we have documented in this year. In 8 months of 2025, we got figures of 1,054 people got enforcedly disappeared. This is the least figure, I must say. This is the least figure because this area is devoid of internet. There is no connecting roads, and people are mostly illiterate. And unfortunately, there are powerful people who are suppressing the people not to share their stories, not to share what's happening with them. So the number of cases we could connected are 1054. Imagine this is the only peak of the iceberg, and there are so many cases that are hidden. So 1054 people who are enforced disappeared in just 8 months. um, these are not just persons, these are like individuals. These are the bricks of their family members. They are the persons who are serving their society. They are the persons who are making the things countable. So 1054 families are waiting for their loved ones. 1054 families who are whose bread earners are impossibly disappeared, and they are now doing and managing themselves. So 1054 families now waiting for justice, waiting for the loved one who will be returned. And unfortunately, those who get disappeared not only get released later, few of them are still missing. I talked about Asad Mengal and Dilip Das, who have been missing since 50 years. You can't expect them alive. And all others after 2000, there's a surge noted in forced disappearances. So few of them got returned as mutilated bodies. Even there is a graveyard in Quetta, which is known as graveyard of unknown people. These are the unrecognized people, unrecognized bodies who every day brought to the only tertiary care center hospital in the Quetta, and these bodies uh, who can't get recognized and buried in that graveyard. And last time when I visited that graveyard, and those all graves have just got the numbers. So the highest number was 116. So who are these 116 people who are anonymously being buried in a graveyard? And there was also um, so many people whose bodies have been recognized. They have extreme level of signs of torture on their body, even melted plastics on their body, their tongues even got cutted, their nose got death shaped, or their nose being cutted. 50 bullets, 60 bullets, only a 1% getting on his chest. Their eyes are dragged out. So when you see those bodies, you can't even sleep for nights. And the families who went there every time when unrecognized bodies came to civil hospital, when they get together, when they gather there and asked to show the bodies to recognize them, they can't recognize anyone. They even take the pictures with themselves and ask the doctor to please trace this picture and see if this is my brother, if this is my husband, if this is my family member. We can't imagine the pain. This is very painful. And I myself, I'm speaking against the enforced disappearances. I became victim just because I'm speaking. 5 of my friends are currently in jail, and when I escaped any kind of arrest at this time, like I'm absconded and police is searching for me, and when police was searching for me and failed to arrest me, they abducted my father. My father was missing for 4 months, and even before that, in 2021, when I was leading a student organization for the rights of students, for the right of education. When I was elected as the chairperson of that organization, I was threatened to leave or resign that organization, but when I refused, my only brother was abducted. For 6 months, he was missing, and we don't know how we don't know anything about him. When my brother was missing, there was a fake encounter, and the police killed 15 missing persons and said they are militants. So and I was asked to go and check these bodies, I couldn't. I was unable to check that bodies, that whether my brother is there or not. So every family is facing this trauma from years, from like decades, and against this pain they have developed the method of resistance. They do protest, even though the illiterate people, they don't know the meaning of the protest, but they came on the roads, they came to the streets and asked for their loved ones. So this method is giving energy to the society. So this method giving hope to the people. Even though on the days of Eid, on the days of festives, when people call me, either you people are going to announce a protest or we do it ourselves. I said, okay, let's do it organized. And we announced 30 to 40 protests throughout the Balistan, and people on the days of festives come in front of their houses, come in front of the press club and record their protest. They know nothing is going to work for them. The judiciary is only working for army, media is working for the army, and the commissions those are made to bring back these people, but are harassing the family members, the sisters, the mothers. They just putting bad words for them, that why you females are coming. And even these females say there's no one left in her house. There are even stories of 4 brothers abducted from a house. The 3 brothers abducted in 2011 and the 4th one abducted now. 3 months back, 2 brothers and the father abducted from a house, and after 2 months, their mutilated bodies got dumped. No one left in that house to earn bread for their family members. So, like, this is happening, and this is very painful and affecting every individual, affecting every family in our society, and no one is going to report on this. You will not find any figures, any media, any person reporting on these, any Pakistani talking about Baloch rights. And we even try to speak about these, and we portray it as terrorists, we portray it as insurgents, we portray it as foreign agents. So this is the whole story. I can't define it in only 10 minutes, but literally things are very worse here. So thank you for making these things audible. And what we expect from the world, this is not only the Pakistan that is doing. At this time, this is a global world, and Pakistan is completely its economy dependent on IMF, dependent on other countries. So the world can make this country to follow its own Pakistan is a signatory of ICCPR. Pakistan is a signatory of so many of things like this. So EU can compel Pakistan to accept to respect for the human rights. The United Nations and the other countries who are making any trade deals, and especially the multinational companies coming to Balochistan, they should not be allowed to go to a land where there is already people are suffering a lot. And for those countries, for those multinational projects, we suffer furthermore, because the forces want to sell our land, forces wanted to sell our resources, and they do further oppression. Whenever there's a new project is going to launch in Balistan, there is surgeon abductions, surgeon killing deaths, and surgeon arrests. So I want the world, the civilized world, please, when you go somewhere, when you listen to the Pakistan, ask them to accept the democracy for its own country, to accept the freedom of speech, to freedom of to give people freedom of life, to follow its own signatories that they have done. And without these things, they should put sanctions. If they will not, we will die like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sabia, for that really powerful message. And thank you to all of our speakers for illustrating the importance of having discussions like this and having platforms where we can speak about these things. I'd like to hand over to Rubina, our chair and president, for some concluding remarks today. Rubina.
Yeah, thank you, Naashna. And can I just thank all the nations and peoples today who has raised their issues. Of course, the last, I had almost tears in my eyes when I listened these stories, as emotional as a mother, as a sister, as a fellow activist, Sabia, and all others. We have heard powerful testimonies from Sindhis, from Kurdish, from Uyghurs, and Baloch nations' voices that speak not only of individual suffering, but of a collective trauma. And their story actually reminds us that the enforced disappearance is not simply a political tactic, It is a profound human tragedy, and it is a form of emotional and social genocide of the nations, which are designed actually to fracture the families, silence the communities, and erase the identity of the entire nations. And this is why I feel that this enforced disappearance cannot be treated as a marginal or a political issue. It is a strikes at the heart of the human dignity and international law. Families have the right to know the fate of their loved ones, and communities have the right to exist free from fear, and nations have the right to preserve their voices, cultures, resources, and absolute identities. And I know Qurban mentioned about alliances and so on. Absolutely, we all suffered people need to make alliances and come as a forceful voice at international platform. And I think this is one of couple of good ideas I got from this today. One aspect I was sad to hear, but other aspect I felt encouraged that we can make the suffered nations some alliances and come as a one voice against these issues. I feel that international community has both, I feel, the responsibility, and as mentioned, they have tools to act. First, the states must strengthen support for international convention for the protection of all persons from enforced disappearance and demand accountability from those who continue to ignore or deny, really. Second, we must use international platforms such as the Human Rights Council, the UN Working Group on Enforced Disappearance or Involuntary Disappearance, and the European Parliament to ensure that the voices of families of those nations are amplified, not silenced, and these institutions must actually serve not only as observers, but as active defenders of truth, justice, and reparations, really. And third, the civil society, NGOs, the activists, human rights defenders, and diaspora communities, we must work together to ensure that enforced disappearance are recognized not as only a human rights violation, but as a crime against humanity. This requires actually a coordinated advocacy, strategic litigation, a global awareness campaigns that make it impossible for our governments to ignore the suffering of families, really. And finally, let us remember, enforced disappearance is designed to erase us. Our collective duty is to resist that erasure by speaking, by documenting, by standing in solidarity. We can transfer the silence into resistance, a strong resistance, and into grief, into the action. Today, I urge the international community to see enforced disappearance not as a distant political dispute, but a systematic assault on humanity itself. To ignore, it is a complicit. If you ignore it, it is to be a complicit in the suffering of those families and the destruction of those nations. So to confront, it is to uphold the very principle upon which the United Nations was founded, is dignity, justice, and the right of all people to live in freedom and peace. And let us work together to raise the voice. I thank you, all speakers, and you all touched my heart today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to our chair as well, Rubina, and thank you to
all.
our participants.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you,
The
everybody.
recording will be available for all of us to circulate to your people. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.